Hey everyone, I just wanted to give you guys a little update. I guess I should make a video for this week about decks that I've been playing. So the DBS decks website obviously got a little bit of an update, so started using that a little bit more. So we're gonna use that in this video again. I made 4 decks. I posted them all up on this website, so if you want to see the lists, I will put a link in the description to the website. I just made 4 of them really quick. The 4 decks I have um, are Blue Green Starter Deck Goku playing Psyched Up. We got Time Ring Blue Green Cell. We got an updated Buu-Han Mecha Frieza deck that kind of involves the new cards. I'll kind of go over this one a little bit heavier, seeing as this is a deck people. I guess this is just like the most viewed deck that I have. That people might want to hear how I kind of change a little bit. And then we have a fun deck, which is blue-red Vados, or red-blue Vados, I guess, because it's more red-heavy. So something to try if you guys want to take something stupid to locals. Fun. So let's kind of start at this. We'll go from left to right here. So the first one I want to talk about is the Psyched Up list. So I made a video that showed blue-green starter deck Goku of me kind of building the blue-green one with the new cards playing Psyched Up. From what I've seen, the minimal amount of people I talked to, some people didn't really like Psyched Up Gotenks that much. Personally, I think the card is extremely powerful. Putting a removal spell and a Princess Speed Vegeta in the same card, a more stronger Princess Speed Vegeta in the same card on 6 mana. The 6 mana is probably like the weirdest part, but beyond that, the card is absolutely fantastic. My personal opinion. I think in a really removal heavy kind of deck, it works pretty well, which is what most of the blue-green starter deck Goku decks were. So to kind of go into it, the main things that I changed is I'm playing 3 energy boosted Beerus. I'm not playing any of the 10k Gotenks or Trunks, the 10k, the power ones, so no of the promo blue Trunks and no of the Family of Justice Sun Gotens. My reasoning behind that is, which if you ever want to play Psyched Up on 4, you're probably just going to be using one of the unified Sun Gotens that you're going to bounce to your hand and combo it with either unified Trunks or one of the vanilla Trunks, which is in here. Other than that, the 4 Unyieldings are there just to be combo pieces, where it's going to help you untap mana a lot better, rather than be a card that you're going to cast Psyched Up with. There's not a whole lot of moments where I casted Psyched Up on 4. It wasn't ever really relevant. Casting this on 4 is kind of weird because you're just cantripping your Sun Gotens and your Trunks, which you really just don't want to cantrip them. You more want to keep them in your hand for as much value as you possibly can, till eventually you play Psyched Up on 6, where that's when you start pitching like your Sun Goten and your Trunks as combo pieces to get more value out of them. And then eventually you do a +1 with Psyched Up and also kill one of their things. The deck is, so most of the deck is extremely reactive except for the Sun Goten and the unified Trunks, which I think is what I stated previously. A lot of my games ended with me really abusing the bouncing of the unified cards and playing them multiple times, especially with the leader ability of me untapping a bunch. Result of Training was probably the best card in the deck, seeing as I was more of the aggressive player. When my opponents had more cards in their hand, they were more negligent to attack me, and eventually punishing them with a Result of Training was extremely sweet all the time. I think I won 1 or 2 of my games on with still 8 life, that kind of stuff. When you're playing slower decks like blue-yellow Mecha Frieza, or like a really slow blue-green Cell deck that doesn't really attack you that much, you can really punish them by playing Result of Training. Because once you get this flipped over, it's just +1s for days. That, and also you still untap for playing Result of Training, so it's not even that big of a downfall. Because most of your cards you can play as 4 drops. The only one that you really can is the Super Saiyan Gotenks. Also, when you're Result of Training and you do flip this over, you immediately get the 5,000 power because you have 5 or more energy because of the Result of Training. The 3 Sensu Beans and the 3 Whis coercions, it felt correct. There was some situations where I wish I had a 4th Whis or more opportunities to see it. Because if 2 of them gets into your life, it's highly unlikely you're going to find another one coming to your hand. Just unfortunate things like that. The spot removal packages that I played, so Hidden Awakening Kale was fantastic in decks that can't really deal with you playing 8 cantrips, so Bundle and Majin Buu. These things, you just flood them out really quickly. If your opponent doesn't really have a great answer to it, then you just Hidden Awakening Kale and bring it back. And if they try to play their own little dorks, Unified Spirit Trunks was a very good cleanup card. Normally, and one tutors the other. So if you draw the Goten, you find this one. If you have the Trunks already in your hand, you have a Goten, then you can just do the value, which is always a good trade-off. The one thing that I did notice is when you're playing a lot of these cards as they are, you don't have really any way to tutor your stronger win conditions, which is Super Saiyan Gotenks and Psyched Up Gotenks. So you kind of just have to naturally draw them and play around keeping a hold of them. Most of the time, if I had a Psyched Up in my main, like in my hand at the beginning, it'd be played as mana, and then eventually, because I would try to force a Result of Training as fast as possible, and then if I notice that I'm going to be getting hit hard enough to not Result of Training, I just dropped the Result of Training game plan altogether and just started using it as mana, that kind of stuff. But only playing 4 Gotens, your goal is to not really use Psyched Up as a 4-mana removal spell. You're normally using Psyched Up as something that puts you so far ahead, it's really difficult to come back from. So playing it on 6 mana and being able to untap 2 afterwards with your leader ability, it was just it was outrageously strong. But that's the one thing to keep in mind is you want to play Psyched Up, or how I feel about Psyched Up now, is you never want to use Psyched Up's alternate casting ability. You have other cards to do that for you, like Kale and Energy Boosted Beerus. You normally want to play Psyched Up as a 6-drop. It's an insanely powerful 6-drop. I don't think there's really any other 6-drop that can compare it to how strong it can be. That I can think of off the top of my head. Babidi would probably be the only one relatively, like, kind of has the same weaknesses too, where they can both get Cold Bloodlusted. And if that's the case, you can punish Cold Bloodlust pretty heavily with the Unifieds. Sometimes they feel like they're a strong Cold Bloodlust target. So if you can just keep going to town with the Sun Gotens and the Trunks until they eventually Cold Bloodlust one of them, and then you can start playing Psyched Up Gotenks with less fear that they're going to Cold Bloodlust, especially if they're using Life with Mecha Frieza. If they're using Life and they're doing it, it feels fairly good when they're starting to use cards that are more impactful in your green deck on your weaker stuff that you don't super care about, because eventually you're going to want them in your graveyard to play Psyched Up. The only scary thing that can happen is if they do end up Cold Bloodlusting one of these, and then they do the Mass Super Saiyan to remove, to send it to Warp. That's where it gets a little bad feels. Other than that, playing 8 copies of Trunks to make it a lot more consistent when Goten attacks. Sometimes you're gonna whiff. It's just bound to happen. I mean, you more look for it as potential card advantage, but the card itself is just 3 mana. Try to deal 1 damage to your opponent, make them waste a card, and then the card comes right back and it's completely safe. So the card was outrageous, super good. I really liked it. This deck worked out fairly well. It kind of has a weird play style to it. Result of Training and Objection are the cards that you want to keep in your hand the most in your openers. And then you just want to play Majin Buus and bundle Gokus as much as you possibly can to cantrip your way through the deck, because there's nothing you want to keep in your deck. You want to draw as many cards as you possibly can, because the more options you give yourself, the better. Unless if you're playing against Cell, obviously, you don't want to get your hand destroyed. Then you want to play more aggressive, try to dump your hand as fast as possible, and then you're going to be coming back with Psyched Up. Because a really impactful play is when you get to 6 mana, and if they sell you down to 3 cards and one of those cards in your hand is Psyched Up, playing a Psyched Up against a Cell is extremely powerful. So this is a list. If any of you want to try to take it, put your own little twist on it, knock yourself out. If you want to try this as it is, it kind of has a weird play style to it, is what I felt like. Either really rewarding. The thing is you don't want to be super greedy. You want to play as paced as possible. You want to try to use all your mana every single turn, and that's really easy to do when you're playing Trunks and Goten, where you can dump all your mana, but you don't want to play your removal as proactive cards. You always want to do them reactively. Psyched Up is one of those cases where you're okay with your opponent sticking at 2 forever. You just want to wait till they tap out for something, and then you just want to punish it. That was kind of the whole point of the deck, and it worked really well, especially with your leader being a 20k beater. Does starter deck Goku stuff. And so the locals that I play in are playing best of 1 and then cut to top 4, and then the top 4 plays 2 out of 3, but normally the top 4 splits. So normally best of 1s only happen. I didn't drop a game, and I never really felt like I was out of control of a game. Always felt like I was in a super winning position. So that is kind of the thoughts on the first one. We'll go to the next one. So the next one I played, and this is what I played at a local. This was a 3-round best of 1 local, is when I played this one. So this is Time Ring Blue Green Cell. This is based off of the regional list. Literally, copy and pasted the regional list and then just added a couple of the new cards because they came out that day. And it worked out for me. Seeing as it was best of 1, I didn't have the sideboard plan that the regional list had, which was the Cell package, where you just boarded out the Zamasu crap and then just went straight back into Blue-Green Cell kind of stuff. So Time Patrol Trunks was extremely good in this deck. I mean, the card's fantastic in Cell. Being able to look at the top 2, putting garbage that you don't want on the bottom, and putting a card in your hand, that's relevant. It's really strong. Doing it for free is really good. When Cell's flipped over, you remove 2 from the bottom of it into the drop area to kill something, and then you can use those 2 cards that you put in the drop area to play Time Patrol Trunks, get value out of it, good stuff happens to you. The one thing I changed about this list is I was playing 3 Whis Resting Attendant and 2 Time Patrol Trunks, and I changed that around to 2 Whis Resting Attendant and 3 Time Patrol Trunks. Worked out a little bit better. But other than that, it was super standard. The one scary thing that happened was, so your win condition is Infinite Force Fuse Zamasu, which is the big 10-drop that you can fuse together for 7 mana. And the way that you try to do that is by playing Zamasu the Invincible, and then eventually you play Warrior of the Gods Goku Black, where they can't kill it efficiently. So if they're playing red and they're attacking with Jiren, you got to play it a little bit smarter, like holding 2 Whis Coercions or Mafuba, something along those lines, to make sure that this thing doesn't die. But the one scary thing that can happen is TN. So the way that you're trying to flip in this deck is by playing TN on 2, flip over, draw as many cards as you can, and then try to do the combo. If one of these combo pieces is under your life, or if both of them are under your life, and TN discards one of them, boy, do you start feeling a little scared because you're 100% not playing your Infinite Force Fuse Zamasu on in a relevant time. Now you have to start playing more passive, and you have to start playing weaker cards to get around that. The Chilling Terror Android 7, it's there for when you switch over to the sideboard strategy. Never really played it as a 3-drop. It was mainly there as combo fodder and being able to draw 2 after you flip over. But beyond that, the deck played out pretty straightforward. I felt I had to play extremely passive, so it was a lot of just like land go kind of stuff, and then once you flip over, you draw a ton of cards, and you got to really risk decking yourself because that's a real thing that can happen in slower cell decks. Because every turn, if you discard a card and draw 2 cards, you're technically drawing through your deck, even though you're drawing through your deck faster than everybody else, but you're not gaining any extra card advantage based on what your opponent is. So you're -1 to +2, so you're only +1ing just like you would if a leader attacked. The one good thing about Cell though is they don't have to attack to get their +1. They can just play really passive and keep their opponent at like minimal cards in hand while they're doing that, and they're also building up kill spells to deal with their opponent's stuff. Deck is extremely weak to Bobbity, I feel, but any Cell deck's fairly weak to Bobbity, in my opinion. If they're able to play passive enough and eventually drop a Bobbity on you, bad stuff happens. Sadly, I didn't run in anything like that. Forgot what the hardest matchup I had was. Like I probably could not tell you top of my head. It was a pretty clean 3-0 with not a whole lot of issues. The one card that was really funny though was the Time Ring. Playing Time Ring on 4, looking at the top 10 for your 2 combo pieces. That +1 me a decent amount of times. It was great. Very interesting deck idea that I really wanted to try, and it turned out to work probably as he intended. Seeing as he made top 32, it's very interesting. It punishes the slow decks fairly well. Because indestructible threats are, a lot of the decks that play infinite amount of removals, not getting any value out of that. It keeps your opponent land stilled, so they can't get more energy than what they already have. Also, when you're taking a card out of their hand when you attack, one out of their energy, one out of their life, one out of their field, it's insanely powerful card. But other than that, it felt pretty straightforward. And it was really fun to play. It was really interesting and really fun, and highly suggest if anybody wants to play something that's interesting, competitive, and a little under the radar, this would definitely be a deck that you could bring, that you'd probably have a whole lot of fun with. Because I know I did. So if I had fun, hopefully anybody that watches this would also have the same amount of fun I did. But that's what I have to say about this deck. So let's see. So let's go on to the next one. So back to Buu-Han Mecha Frieza. I'm gonna try not to go into a giant rant about this, but I can talk about the changes that I made, why I made them, why they exist, stuff like that. I'm still off of Encouraging Presence Monica for, I don't want to go into another 10-15 minute rant about that one. Still have the same opinions about the card. But it is different because I put it in the sideboard now. And why it's in the sideboard is for the slower matchups and the decks that potentially plays Cell Absorption. Cell Absorption is a kind of a hard card to deal with when both of you get extra card locked. And Encouraging Presence Monica really helps you deal with that card. It helps you deal with the pressure pretty easily. But the biggest changes is Mysterious Presence Monica in the main over Energy Boosted Beerus. I put in over energy boosted beers and also going down to two miraculous comeback ultimate Gohans, which is the 6 mana Gohan. Going down to two of those is also a change. It used to be down to and minus two Jackos. I'm working on getting my words a little bit better. So yeah, the changes of the deck that were made is minus two Jackos, minus two 6 mana Gohans, and minus one Beerus for plus two Mysterious Presence Monica and three Time Patrol Trunks. So Time Patrol Trunks is an extremely good card in this deck. You don't have any interaction with your graveyard, so you really don't care. When you play Time Patrol Trunks and you find a 7 mana Buu on top of your deck, in the top two cards, you can just throw that one on the bottom so you know that you're going to have one for when you try to go off. That one I feel seems pretty obvious. And then the next one is Mysterious Presence Monica. So I did a video where I talked with Patrick Kowal, so I'm gonna give him the props of how this idea came about. And the way that he relayed the information of how the card worked for him is why I kind of lean more towards this one than Energy Boosted Beerus. So the biggest thing is you don't really play dudes until you're starting to play Jirans. The only kind of dudes that you're playing is Energy Boosted Majin Buu and into Jiren, into the Big Buu, and Hercule. Those are normally... You're only playing roughly those four cards as threats. Everything else kind of sits in your hand, especially when you're going on less Gohans. The promo Gohan is something that you never want to play as a tempo card, unless if you have two of them and you're okay on red mana. So what's really good about Mysterious Presence Monica is a extremely nice punish versus Cell. So even if you cold Bloodlust to Cell, they still have a 30k beater on the field. The best way to take care of that is 100% Mysterious Presence Monica. Just being able to bounce that card is super threatening. The other thing it takes care of is revenge blockers in the main deck. So people playing Android 16, roughly two of them, in the main, if they play that card against your red removal deck, it's extremely powerful, and there's not a whole lot of ways to deal with it in this deck other than run a Jiren into it or hope to God that your Gohan or your Mecha Frieza is threatening enough for them to block. So what the Mysterious Presence Monica allows you to do is on an empty board you can bounce their blocker, then you can play your threat and take care of that. It also kind of time walks them, because if they see your threat after you play one of those, it's highly likely that they're going to draw it and play it again, so you just consumed another of their 3 to 2 mana depending on which revenge blocker they're playing. It's also a 0-5k combo, which is one of those things. It's really helpful in the aggro matchups, and it's really strong for that reason. This, I don't know how... I haven't personally tested this, so this is a lot of theory. But we have tested, but Time Patrol Trunks has been tested, and it has been proven to be a very good card. Which is what I would assume in a deck like this. Beyond that, the sideboard changed also a little bit from the original, so still on 3 Sun Goten. It would be 4, but we're playing 2 of the Mysterious Presence Monica, so you kind of have 5 answers to those revenge blockers that you have a whole lot of problems with. The Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks is still really good against Cell, for obvious reasons. If you play 4 dudes against a card, or against a deck that 1-for-1s for the most part, you're at a really high advantage. Battering lasers are still battering lasers, same with Crusher Balls. Sometimes you want to go up to 4 Crusher Balls and go down on some cold Bloodlust when you're playing against the red decks. Makes a whole lot of sense. And then the Jackos came into the sideboard for the Vegetas and Trunks kind of decks. Jackos, an extremely good defensive card, especially against those decks that's trying to combo on you. Being able to bounce Furthering Destruction Champa to avoid 2 damage and double striking them using a mana. It's strong. Still strong. They still have it in their hand, which is kind of unfortunate, but it also makes their mana a little bit weird. where they're more committed on trying to combo with things rather than create a board presence. Um, but for the most part, going down to two 6 mana Gohans, I should also mention. You're playing 4 Boos, and you're playing 3 Time Patrol Trunks. The Time Patrol Trunks can help dig for the Gohans, for the 6 mana Gohans. So they became more of a niche card rather than a staple. But they're still needed because it's something that you need to put under the Majin Buu, or the Awakening Evil Majin Buu, to get as much value as possible. The deck is now a little bit more reliant on getting the 7 mana Buu out as a win condition. But the deck still performs extremely well. It's still extremely threatening. I still feel blue-green kind of has a rough matchup against the deck. I still feel it's favored in most of the meta, personally speaking, but I don't think it's as one-sided as it was when I initially had the deck built and shown, because the meta has changed a whole bunch since that. What has it been, about a month now? Month or two? Has it seriously only been yeah, well, no, it's been about a month and 10 days, so about 40 days. Meta's shifted a lot in those 40 days for obvious reasons. But I still think this deck's extremely strong in the meta. Still a threat to be dealt with. I just feel playstyle has a lot to do with it, and also deck decision has a lot to do with it compared to how well you're going to do in an event with it. If you test with it a lot, and you test against a lot of frequent matchups that you start noticing how to play against them, the deck's going to feel a lot better than someone who just picks it up on day one and is able to feel really strong with it. Normally what it boils down to, kind of how I showed with the Trunks matchup, where there was a lot of comments that Trunks was a hard matchup, and then kind of showed it felt more favored in the Buu-Han deck, the more that you played the matchup. And then I guess that's normally all I have to say. Everything else is fairly standard, fairly stapled. Then let's go to the last deck. So this one's kind of the fun, take it to a best of one tournament, see how you do kind of stuff. So I had this idea ever since I got a hold of these, which is the Proud Spark Vados, which is the terribly worded Tournament Pack 1 promo. So the terribly worded Tournament Pack 1 promo says, when your leader attacks a battle card, both cards get 5,000 power, which what the both stands for is the Proud Spark Vados and your Vados leader both get plus 5,000 power. So your leader attacks for 25k, and Proud Spark Vados becomes a 25k double striker for 4 mana. Super strong effect. I don't think there's any other 25k double strikers off the top of my head for 4 mana, so card becomes fairly strong. The other thing that you can do is Super Saiyan 3 Goku is a card that comes into play, gives your leader 5,000 power, then your leader's able to attack battle cards with more power that way, so they're less likely to save them. Those are the 2 cards that I was kind of focusing around, and then I just made a blue-green deck, or blue-red deck, sorry. Blue-red deck around that. So the blue is fairly staple, minus the Whis' Sacred Guards. Kind of wanted to play something a little defensive in there. Outside of the Whis' Coercions and the Sensu Beans, you could probably play a different card, but I built this deck extremely quickly, so it's, as you can see, it's a lot of 4-ofs and a lot of not a lot of thought put into it. It's more of just play this deck, it looks really fun. And it also plays the promos that haven't really been seeing a whole lot of play. Thought I'd make a deck out of them. The biggest thing is Mind Control Babidi. We're trying to bring back Babidi. There's too many blue-green Gokus running around. Those need to get punished by playing Babidi into some insane Gotenks plays, or into some Super Saiyan 3 Gokus, into some just cool stuff. You just want to go into cool stuff with Babidi. But the goal with Babidi is to hit Jiren, Proud Spark Vados, and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. You're playing everything is fairly stapled. The double shot Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta was just a solid card I thought to put in there if you're trying to remove something really big. Use that to kind of put you over the top. Or if if they're trying to crack back at you, it's also a fairly good defensive card that punishes a lot of people pretty hard. Playing the best red cards in the game, which is the promo Gohan and Jiren's. For obvious reasons, Jiren is better Vados removal, and the ability Unleash Ultimate Gohan is a card that lets you play a little bit more passive, because you're removing their board extremely aggressively, and you're also going to try to gain card advantage by playing the ability Unleash Ultimate Gohan. There's probably a bunch of ways you can play this deck. You can probably play it with Objection, Result of Training, just because Pressure to You doesn't really exist because cards don't want to get played that are going to get killed by Vados outright. So you can play, you can play Result of Training Objection kind of list instead of playing the Weeseeker Guards and Bulmas. Silly stuff like that. There's a lot of things that you can do, but this is kind of a skeleton of things you can play. I kind of made this deck extremely quickly. It was actually between this, so I made this deck in about 9 minutes. But it's just an idea I had bouncing in my head, and I thought I'd show it off. It just looks like it's really fun, and hopefully somebody gets bored of locals like I do and just wants to play this random fun stuff, which turns out to be a little bit more fun than playing top tier decks all the time. But other than that, kind of a short video for me. Yeah, 30 minutes. I did a playtesting video with my friend Tam, who does the DBS University kind of stuff. Not kind of stuff, does the DBS University stuff. So I will put up, hopefully he puts those videos up soon. I don't know how, I had the recording and the recording got corrupted, but I think I fixed it and I have no idea. So hopefully those videos go up. If not, I do have the uncut footage that I can put up or something along those lines if he just wants to drop the whole project. Other than that, let me know if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns. I'm very active when it comes to my comments on my channel. Never shy to answer anyone's questions. I always give thorough answers and answers that are very opinionated in my brain. But yeah, let me know if there's any other deck ideas you guys maybe want to see. Try to spark some ideas into my brain. I kind of looked through all the regional lists and nothing seemed too surprising other than the time ring deck. So whoever posted the comment that was like wanted to see the time ring deck that made top 32 or the Zamasu Cell deck, you're the reason I looked that deck up. I just want you to know that. But other than that, take it easy.